All right, what's going on, coin traders and algo fam? How we doing? Big down day in the markets today. Algorand's looking over 5% down. So we did have the big announcement coming in that the Fed's PCE, which is the personal consumption expenditures, which is kind of more of the preferred gauge of inflation, actually came in higher than expected. So expectations were at about 5%, and they did come in at 5.4. So that's one of the big reasons right now that we do have the crypto space and also the stocks as well pulling down. So you can see if we look at the SPY SPX S&P 500 index, you can see we are down about 1.25 points as well. So same thing with the Dow, down over a point. So we have been pulling back over the last few days, which is another reason that we have seen a big pullback in the crypto space. But so do want to talk about Algorand right now. First, let's actually take a look at Bitcoin because we do have a big pullback, but also we're looking at a big possibility of finding a higher low. So we still have plenty of room on top of the low right now coming in, which is at 21,366. So you can see it from that point looking left, big point of resistance as well before this run up. So also following these exponential moving averages to the upside. So we're looking pretty good right now, but we do still have a lot of bearish things to talk about, especially after getting rejected time and time again with a lot of strength from this $25,000 level. Now, if you saw my video from a couple of days ago, we talked about the overall market cap space being in a much longer falling wedge pattern and actually seeing a little bit of rejection from this upper trend line. So we could be looking at pulling back now inside of this longer falling wedge. So especially with combating the high interest rates and inflation and pretty much the overall global sentiment, it is still a decent chunk of reasonable certainty, or not certainty, but a possibility rather, that we could still be seeing this overall play out this upcoming year. I know a lot of calls have been coming in for a bottom already being in, and although it seems likely since the amount of upside has been pretty extreme, we still can't call that just yet. And obviously, if we do look at it in terms of a weekly time frame, still plenty of opportunity to pull back. But like we said, would still expect a pullback and actually maintaining a higher low over that. But anyway, nonetheless, I digress. The big point we do need to look at is the overall resistance downtrend line that we have been pretty much smashed up against right now, especially with coming in at a lot of previous resistance price levels. So I do still think, especially after a lot of this upside, still need to have a longer test confirming a longer weekly higher low. And that does mean a little bit of a pullback here, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and flip back over into Algorand right now and talk about what that is going to go ahead and look like. So if we take a look at Algorand right now, especially, let's start out on the weekly chart, and we are in the log scale, which doesn't really matter right now, but getting smashed up right now at this 26 period exponential moving average, which we have now seen as a double test of resistance. So let's go ahead and turn off the 50 and the 12. So if we go ahead and look at both of the recent tests, very nice confirmation and rejection showing that this is a relevant line. So looking back prior to the FTX flush, we did have 2 weeks get rejected and actually see prices get pushed back below for the close in those instances. So we know that this is a very extreme and effective trend line. And especially if we draw a price level for resistance, this is the big level that we found as resistance before this big move. So big point of resistance now has flipped into week on week, big point of closing resistance. So it's definitely not unreasonable to think with all of this strength and resistance up overhead that we could be looking at a little bit of a weekly pullback, especially given the fact that we have seen about 2 months or so of overall upside. So about, 9 bars since the end of the year effectively. So I do still think that right now there's a good shot we could be looking at a pullback and a testing of some higher lows, just because the overall longer term pattern and some of these other financial indications for fundamentals like the high PCE numbers and inflation rates climbing, as well as a lot of the factors that the stock market is starting to pull back as well. So flipping over into the daily now, I want to actually pull up the RSI just because we do have a much longer term, basically divergence from this RSI and the price point. And so although in the current price, we actually haven't found a new higher high compared to the high that we found at 29.88 cents. So we did get that lower high, in fact. So now we will be running down and actually testing this low at 23.3 cents. So if price does fall back below that, then that's pretty much going to confirm that the top's already in, especially using this bullish or bearish divergence as a sign and signal that we are going to be seeing a little bit more of that downside to test a weekly higher low in that instance. So overall, for the next coming weeks, that is pretty much what I am going to be expecting, especially if we do continue to see slippage out of Bitcoin. So like we said, we are still maintaining a daily higher low, and effectively for Algorand, we are as well. But from current price points, looking at downside, that would be a pullback of about 8%, which actually isn't that substantial. And typically when we do start to get slippage, we do start to increase the amount of bearishness that we get in this overall. So if we do in fact see a continuation of this overall downside pattern, it wouldn't actually be unreasonable to think that we could see a pullback in that level in the next coming days here. But shorter term, we would still be expecting a little bit more of that bounce. Haven't really got any of that oversold consolidation or oversold bounce just yet. So if we do look at over on the 1 hour, for example, we're looking at hourly RSI at 19. So pretty far extended to the downside as well. So we are going to expect a little bit more in the short coming hours here of a little bit more oversold bounce, excuse me. So we would be expecting probably a price run up to about 25, 26 cents here. If we do want to flip over to the 4 hour, let's actually go ahead and pull up the VPVR volume profile visible range, because you can see big point of mass right now is pretty much right where we're seeing the price come in at, just above the 25-cent line, which is going to be a very big, strong resistance or support level rather, since it was previous resistance on this big bounce attempt once we actually flushed to the 25-cent on the initial move back in November. But if we do zoom out in this instance, you can see the big point of mass actually does reach below, pretty much from about 24.5 cents all the way down to about 23.5 cents. So if we do see a break of 25 cents, then we would be looking at that being a very big support level. So that does still have us sitting up with a higher low on top of the low above 23.3 cents. So if that level can maintain, then effectively what happened, let's go ahead and turn this off and actually look at, we would be looking at a longer tightening range pattern. So lower high and then a higher low as well. That would be pretty much the most bullish case scenario in that instance that we would be looking at right now. I don't really see too many factors and reasons to believe that overall we can see another similar move, especially since we didn't get a higher high on this last test. Keep in mind too that this also came off a new lower low on this overall trend. So we found the high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then we broke to a lower low. Now we are sitting at a lower high, so it's reasonable to believe that even if we do get some consolidation on the shorter term, longer term we would still be testing and rejecting below this 23.3 cents is still my expectation. If we look at the current shorter term trend on the 6 hour, you can see we are forming a head and shoulders pattern. So we have our low, our left shoulder running up, setting our neck and our headline, forming our right shoulder, and we now have broken below both of the lines, basically confirming that we are in that type of pattern and setup. So if we look at a price target from the high of this head and shoulders pattern down to the effective first neckline, and we could be seeing that that does put us pretty much right in line with that 23 cents. So that is going to be our downside target, and that's why it is so key and critical that we do see a maintaining of that level, but my expectation is still not that great, since like we said, we do need to, on the longer time frames, pull back and set a weekly higher low. And I do think that at this point, it will take a big news catalyst in order to continue a lot of upside movement, because after 2 months of pretty much overall gains, we do need to see a little bit of a cool down, testing that higher weekly low for the overall charts and the crypto space. And especially like we mentioned in the previous video, analyzing the overall crypto market cap space, it's likely to expect a rejection from the upside trend line, providing resistance, and we will be seeing a pullback in that instance. So that is my expectation for the coming days and weeks here. But obviously nothing is financial advice, and would love to know everyone's opinions and thoughts down below in the comments sections. With that, that is going to go ahead and wrap up this little video and update on Algorand and the crypto space though. So hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button if you haven't done so just yet. Don't forget to drop a follow over on Twitter at @coin_trades. Thanks again for all the continued love and support. As always, stay safe, take care. I'll catch you back in the next video.